Hello? Hello? Hi, my name is Siran, and today I'm representing Group 5 to present our SYD366 group presentation. And my topic is about address module. And this presentation will cover three parts. First one is address module, and what is this module talking about. Second part is the user story and why we choose this user story. And lastly, I will briefly go through the use cases and the class diagram we use. Firstly, we want to talk about why we choose or why we call this module an address module, and why is it important to manage address. In this semester, we will learn a lot of things from the case study and implement different user cases in Jason's food truck business. And the system is very big and it covers four major areas of his business. Firstly, the system manages inventories, and especially dealing with suppliers and dealing purchases. Also, the system manages transactions, which means dealing with money. Also, the system manages sales. In this case, sales usually relate to the customer and orders. And also the system manage appointments, and manage appointment usually relate to managing locations and the times. From this chart, we can see that in many of the places in the system, address is one of the crucial data objectives that be used many times in these functionalities. So as Jason's business is growing bigger, and the system that requires address as a crucial data. For example, when we managing orders or register new users or making appointments, these locations information are very important and should be considered into our data modeling, because these data are retrieved and used in many ways in different multiple situations. Also, the address object can be contain multiple attributes, and these address objective can be used in in different scenarios. From the other side, from the end user experience, is, for example, in the customer profile parts, it is very frequent that customer requires to change and add new address. For example, they changing their residence or they moving to another places. Also, it is very inconvenient for Jason to manually manage address in the appointment making process, because Jason have to manually input address for each appointment and double check whether the address is correct or not, which is very low efficient and time consuming. Also, in the supplier management process, is very similar like customer. Each supplier can have a different location, or can have different shops or warehouses. But in this assignment, we're not going to cover that. We only focus on the customer side. Also, in the future development, address management is also very important, because since we see the oil price is surging, Jason must be more very careful on the gas spending. He wants to know the precise distance each trip, and helps him to calculate the total distance and the transportation expense for each service day. So that all this calculation and analysis requires very precise location data. So after all, the system needs to have a functionality to store and managing address for a variety of situations. So instead of manually input and maintain these information. So based on the discussion from the data module, we discover a user story. And the user story is very straightforward. As the owner of the business, I would like to record and display multiple addresses for a single customer, and I should be able to add, update, and delete a certain address. In addition, I should be able to query all the location details by a certain date in order to calculate the total distance I traveled on that date. The acceptance criteria is about first must be able to record multiple addresses for the customer, and second is must be allow the system to edit and delete specific detail for every customer. Also, lastly, must be able to retrieve the address list by a service date and calculate the total distance. And here is the reason why we choose this user story. First of all, this functionality allows user to have a set of address, not instead of a single one, and the system can choose from a list of address based on customer's preference. If the customer don't have any preference, the customer can have a default address if they don't want to choose any of them. Also, the new functionality allows JSON to add and modify address according to customer's request, and JSON don't need to modify the entire customer profile to add or modify addresses, because if you want to edit the entire customer profile, it could be very complicated. Also, could damage the data integrity. Also, it saves time and efforts for Jason when he using the system to fulfill orders and appointments. The system don't need manual input every time. Instead, it will prompt out a list from the customer, and the JSON can choose the preferable address from the list, which saves a lot of time. Also, in the very last, this new functionality can help the system complete a new data modeling by adding a new class, and the new class or the locations services can support future development like optimized routes or calculating shipment fees, etc. So it could bring a lot of possibility in the future. Lastly, I will quickly go through the diagram and use case. The class diagram consists of 4 objectives. The crucial one is the customer, and each customer can have a list of address, and similar to that, each customer can have a list of contact person, and a customer can place an appointment, and the appointment must have a address and must have a contact person, and this address could come from the address set. Also, it could be comes from creating a new address, and the contact person is very similar to the address object. In the use case, we have 4 different use cases: adding an address, updating an address, and delete an address. These 3 are very similar. The user can request such operation, and the system will display all the customer list. You can JSON can choose from the list or search for a certain customer, and the system will return all the address for that customer, and JSON can choose from the address list and select one of the address to choose whether to edit or change or delete the address, and finally save the operation and exit to the main menu. Also, we have the use case to query all the address by scheduled date. In the system, JSON input a specific date, and the system will display all the appointment information on that date. Also, the system will also retrieve all the location data from that specific date and put them on the map. And we have the functionality to calculate the distance between 2 locations in sequence order, and in order to calculate the total distance for that service date. So with this functionality, JSON could only enter one date and could have the total distance for that day, and that will help Jason to calculate and to understand how much he spent on the gas and how many distance he traveled on that date. So these are the use cases for our user story, and that's it. That's our presentation. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Bye bye.